What's going on today, guys? In this video, I'm going to discuss the only two lenses you really need to do landscape photography so that you can better decide what lenses to buy for landscape photography. Stick around until the end of the video where I give my final thoughts and advice for what lenses you should have in your bag to get those amazing landscape shots. Welcome to my channel where I try to help you become a better landscape photographer. So if you're a landscape photographer, then you've come to the right place. So the first lens that you're gonna need for landscape photography would be some sort of variation of a wide angle lens. Wide angle lenses will help you shoot those big vistas, those big scenes, and it'll allow you to include everything in the scene. A wide angle lens is also great for emphasizing or de-emphasizing things within your scene. You can play around with the movement of your wide angle lens to emphasize foreground elements, for example, or you can also use it to your advantage to get rid of certain things in your scene. Now, you've probably heard this before, that the wide angle lens is the landscape photography lens. While I don't really subscribe to that, I definitely think that as a landscape photographer, you should have some sort of wide variation or have some sort of coverage of wide focal lengths. So I recommend something between the ranges of 14 millimeters to 40 millimeters. I think that's a good wide range to start with. Going ultra wide, I don't think you really need to consider when starting out when doing landscape photography, but once you start doing it more and more and you find that you have a need to go really wide, like 9 millimeters or something crazy like that, like almost like a fisheye, I think that's more of a creative thing rather than a need for landscape photography. If I was to recommend a wide angle lens, I think the Canon 16 to 35 millimeter, pretty much the best wide angle lens right now, in my opinion. It is super sharp, like crazy tack sharp. It's actually what I'm using to film this right now, and it's definitely one of the best lenses I have in my kit. The image stabilization on it is incredible too. It's really good. It's typically what I use to shoot a lot of my B-roll in these videos, and you just really can't go wrong with Canon glass. They just do a really good job with their lens builds. So if you're in the market for the Canon 16 to 35, go ahead and check the link in the video description. I listed it there. The next lens that you're going to need to do landscape photography is a longer lens. I believe the best focal range is somewhere between 50 to 200 millimeters for a longer lens. And within landscape photography, you can shoot at those longer focal lengths for more of a storytelling look. It can help you compress scenes. It can help you emphasize just one subject. It allows you to zoom in and focus on one thing and really tell the story of that one thing, whatever that subject might be. Those longer focal lengths are also great for abstract stuff, which I typically do a lot of in my creative photography. And even in woodland photography, it seems that I'm always using my longer lens more and more. I think I have a 70 to 200 on my camera probably about 80% of the time, honestly. I really like that focal range. So you're definitely going to want to consider getting something in the longer focal length. Somewhere between 50 and 200 millimeters I think is great. And that's just me, that's just my own personal choices, but if you're considering a longer lens, and I definitely think that the Canon 70 to 200 is really good. So if you're in the market for the Canon to 70-200, go ahead and check that. I also listed that in the description. I really think that's one of the better longer lenses. All in all, I truly believe that you can do landscape photography with any lens. You don't actually have to shoot landscape photography within specific focal range. I think people just tend to box things in and they label things. So, you know, the wide angle lens is the landscape photography lens. You typically hear that a lot. I personally think that you can shoot landscape photography at just about any focal length. It's all about just knowing your gear and knowing what you like to shoot. However, if I was just to recommend only two, like if someone had a gun to your head and they said you gotta pick two lenses for landscape photography, I really would recommend having something in that wider 14 to 40 millimeter range and something longer in that 70 to 200 millimeter range. I really think that you can cover the majority of your shooting in that focal length. Thank you guys so much for tuning into the video. Crow always coming in and screwing out my outros. I really appreciate your guys' time. I hope that you guys learned something today. And yeah, just thanks again for tuning in, guys, and I hope to see you in that next video.